Hello, friends. It's the Carnivore Rabbi. A rabbi is a teacher and source of inspiration, and that's what this channel provides for carnivores of all faiths. Welcome. I remember one of our kids' first playdates. We went over to the house of a couple my wife had become friendly with, and we brought our 2-year-old, and they had theirs. The kids played, and then my wife pulled out a snack. I think it was some sort of fruit roll-up. The mom of the other child quickly said, "We don't give our child any sugar. Can we give the kids something else?" I wanted to be polite, and we said, absolutely. And so they had something else. I think they had apple crisp or something like that. When we left, and we were walking to the car, I said to my wife, "Wow, they are so strict. How on earth can they have no sugar in their house? That's impossible and crazy. They can't. They're depriving their child by not giving her any sugar." That's what I thought. How I wish I had been more open-minded back then. I wish that I had read up about sugar. It is an awful addiction, and it affects so many of us. It's also a socially acceptable addiction. It's even an expected one. Sugar and snack companies control the health narrative. They made a villain out of fat so that sugar could escape responsibility for our health problems. But thank goodness our eyes are opening now, and we are beginning to see how destructive sugar is. And the carnivore diet is like a sledgehammer to sugar addiction. If you want to know how to get started on that diet, see this easy, simple video. But today I want to go back to basics. How do you even know if you're addicted to sugar? And what can you do to address those addictions? First sign of sugar addiction. You crave sweet things even when you're not hungry. Oh man, this is so true. I had this craving bad when I was doing keto. I've always had a sweet tooth. And when I tried keto, this was back, I think, in 2018, I lost 20 pounds. And I was still able to indulge. I had keto ice cream, keto cookies, keto cookie dough. I remember buying a lot of keto cookie dough, and that was expensive, but it was so good. Even keto granola and Quest bars. But they just kept the addiction going. And in fact, all these keto treats probably made the addiction even worse. Because I ate more sweet things. Because I thought it was fine, it was no carbs. It was just a sugar substitute that fed the same craving, always wanting something sweet. So I would chew gum when I wasn't eating. And I drank lots of Zevia sodas. They're like the fancy Diet Cokes, different flavors. Sometimes I drink 6 Zevia in a day. And these Zevia aren't cheap, but they just kept the cravings going as well. I kept this sweet keto treat focus going for 2 years. Only carnivore stopped that addiction. Second sign of the addiction, nibbling on sweet treats to soothe yourself when you're upset. Okay, we all do this. We've done this sometime in life. Emotional eating is a real thing, and it's very common. That's because life is hard. As a rabbi, I see this truth every day. Pressure from family, work, just life in general. So we need some comfort. We need breaks. And sugar gives that to us. People used to take a cigarette break. Now they take a Snickers break or a cupcake break. It's not an accident that the people who ran the tobacco companies now run the processed food companies. So how do we stop this emotional eating? Here's a couple of tips from a lot of carnivores. One, simple, eat bacon. I've had people text me in difficult times, they're feeling a craving, and I say eat bacon. Now I eat beef bacon, I'm a rabbi, but if you like pork bacon, fine. It's got that salty, sweet flavor. Also have a salty snack. Eat now a salty meat snack. And most importantly, eat more fatty meat. Also, lower the stress that you have to undergo. Of course, that's easier said than done. Life can be very stressful. But the more stress we have, the more desire we have for those emotional eating breaks. And those cortisol spikes caused by stress can really hurt. My friend, the minimalist carnivore, who I am talking with later today on our Faithful Friday Live, he experienced this when his father died. He was following the same diet, yet he gained weight. Now, obviously, something like the death of a loved one is unavoidable, and it should cause pain. That's life. But if you can, try to reduce stress in other parts of life. I find that the carnivore diet does this naturally. We feel a natural desire to simplify. When we simplify our diet, we start to simplify our life. It's truly remarkable. Third sign, or fourth sign, I can't remember where we are now. But next sign of sugar addiction is needing to eat frequently, like every 3 or 4 hours. Now, this is about our blood sugar level. If we're addicted to sugar, we constantly need an infusion of it. I remember traveling as a kid, and we were on a trip. I was with my family, and the people on the trip needed to stop every 3 hours or they would get hangry. They needed to stop and eat. Now, when I asked them about it, they said, well, it's healthy to eat frequently. We should be snacking 3-4 times a day. Now, that's a real sign of an addiction, isn't it? We justify our bad behavior. But truthfully, it wasn't even really their fault, because health authorities and nutritionists fed that lie. They said it was good to snack frequently. But just think about this logically. We were hunter-gatherers for 98% of our human existence. And until about 120 years ago, there was no refrigeration. Did our ancestors, or even our great-grandparents, snack every few hours? Of course not. They couldn't. Yet they survived. They were healthy. They were much healthier than we are. Just look at pictures, especially of grandparents, great-grandparents, or even just old movies. So we don't need this constant snacking. It's a sign of addiction, not of health. So what do? Eat more fatty meat, and you won't need to eat every few hours. You'll be too full to do. At each meal, eat until you're comfortably full. Next sign, eating sugar compulsively, even though you know it's not good for you. Now, this is a sign of real addiction. The same thing happens to gamblers, alcoholics, sex addicts. We don't like to put sugar addiction in those same categories. It seems so negative, but it really is. Sugar is as addictive as cocaine. The only reason we don't think of it that way is we've been taught that it's no big deal. Sugar companies succeeded in convincing us and doctors that sugar is much better for us than fat. In fact, Dr. Chaffee's talked about that famous bribe in the late 1960s, where these 2 doctors from Harvard were bribed what is today the equivalent of about $50,000 to lie about sugar and say it's much better than saturated fat. And look what's happened since then. Have you seen the way people look? Have you seen that great meme? Don't blame fat for what sugar has done. It's true. A final sign of sugar addiction. Experiencing major fluctuations in your energy throughout the day. Sugar, in fact, carbs in general, do this. All you need to do is feed a child sugar at night to see this in the wild. I remember when my own kids were little, if they would have a juice box, which is just essentially liquid candy at dinner time, they were high-strung all night. And I remember in high school and in college and even early working years, the post-lunch slump, where even if you had a salad, a light lunch, you'd still feel tired after lunch and just feel sluggish. It's like a food coma, but it more accurately should be called a sugar coma. The fact is that meat doesn't do that. It doesn't. I do 1 meal a day now, a big meat meal, around 3 or 4. And at the very beginning, when I started doing OMAD, 1 meal a day, I felt a little tired afterward. Thought of it like I was a lion taking a nap. But I think now that it was my body just getting used to digesting all that food at once. But now that it's adapted, I don't get that sluggishness, that tiredness anymore. In fact, I feel much more energized. Today, after I did that, after I had my meal, I went and walked the dog for a mile. I had to get out and use that energy. In fact, carnivore creates this calm, consistent energy. One of the affirmations that I include in my 31 carnivore affirmations is about that calm, consistent energy. Just tap the link at the top of the comments if you'd like an MP3 copy of me reading those affirmations. I listened to them in the first few months when I was a carnivore. So why does carnivore create that calm, that consistent energy so effectively? I think primarily it's about reducing inflammation. Our body is not feeling agitated. In addition, carnivore allows our brain to run on ketones. It floods our brain with ketones, the fat in the fasting, the intermittent fasting. And ketones are a cleaner source of energy than glucose. They just cause much more relaxation and calm. Our body doesn't have to work as hard to use the glucose. The ketones are feeding our brain. And meat is so easy on the gut. Here's a good analogy. When you eat a meal of carbs, like vegetables and legumes, it's like putting kindling on a fire. It will burn hot and fast, and after a couple minutes, you need to put more kindling on the fire. But if you put logs on a fire, or if you eat protein and fat, you can sit back and relax for a while before you need to tend that fire again. They keep the fire going longer. And here's another helpful analogy. Consider a fish. If you remove a fish from water and put it on a table, it would exhibit symptoms of extreme anxiety. Of course, it would be flapping around. It would not be a surprise to see those symptoms disappear if you throw the fish back into a body of water. Or if you feed a polar bear a diet of grapes and a Caesar salad, that bear would exhibit many odd symptoms, including anxiety. Then if you started to feed it seals, those symptoms would abate and it would recover. Now, even human beings, if we provide our body with what it needs, what it yearns for, and reduce the outside stress that we're not evolved to handle, if we nourish our body and we take care to avoid the stressors in our external environment, then our health and being will improve. This is why nature heals and carnivore is the natural, proper human diet. I hope these analogies were helpful. They really helped clarify things for me when I first experienced them. Just like a fish that's out of water, when we're not nourishing ourselves with the proper human diet, we're out of our natural state of calm and peace and happiness. Now check out these 21 essential rules for starting and thriving on this natural way of eating.